House Republicans going back to the drawing board as they consider two immigration bills after President Trump said this.
I'm looking at both of them. I certainly wouldn't sign the more modest one.
What does the bill have to have in it?
I need a bill that gives this country tremendous border security. I have to have that. We have to get rid of catch and release.
Does that mean the wall?
We have to have the wall. If we don't have the wall, there's no bill.
Let's talk about it with David Goodfriend, a former staff secretary to President Bill Clinton. Liam Donovan is a National Review commentator. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about what's in this so-called compromise immigration bill from the GOP, because they're working on two things. They have the Goodlatte bill, which is considered more conservative. So this is what's in. A path to citizenship for dreamers, $25 billion for the border wall. It ends the diversity visa lottery system and limits chain migration. Now, David, not only is the president not a fan of this and says he's not going to vote for it, a number of lawmakers are saying, well, we need to fully brief him, let him see what's in it. I think he'll like it once he knows. Democrats hate it. They say that this thing is way too conservative. So it sounds like it would have no chance either way, because you've got to have Democrat votes in the Senate to move things.
Yeah, well, if you look at the story that we just saw in your network about what's going on at the border, a major issue now is the separation of children from families. And in fact, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Texas just this morning said on a national newscast, the law does not require the separation of children from their parents. That's a policy decision by the Trump administration. So any legislation that Congress considers that fails to address that crisis that the Trump administration, I would argue, has created is not going to win Democratic votes. It's probably not going to win some Republican votes. There are plenty of Republicans who are up for re-election right now who have to rely on Latino voters in their states where the border issues are major, major issues and feel that it's just un-American to separate children from families, as you heard described by that physician.
And that's one of the things that I think is motivating everybody on the Hill to actually, because they see this and they know that it's heartbreaking. The president was asked about it this morning. He said repeatedly, I hate it. I hate it. He's saying this isn't something that should be happening either. But Liam, he says, we need Democrats to come to the table with us so we can solve this. So who's at fault? Is everybody at fault?
Well, I think this just goes to show you what the dynamic is that's very tricky. Republicans have about a 10% of their conference, 30 members or so, for whom any solution is really important for them to get. The other 10% probably aren't going to be for any solution. The rest need cover from the president for anything they're going to do. I don't know that there's a solution that gets 218 votes among Republicans alone, so a bipartisan solution is going to have to be where this goes ultimately if they want to solve the problem.
Yeah, because getting the 218 in the House and then getting to the Senate where you got to have 60, which means you got to have Democrats vote with you there, and then for it all to be together something that will get to the president and he'll actually sign it. I mean, it seems like this is a really tough needle to thread.
It is, and what's fascinating to me, I mean, I'm an outside observer when it comes to the Republican caucus. There is, as you just heard described, significant division within the Republican caucus. I mean, forget about winning Democratic votes for a second. Could you get a majority of Republicans in the House or a majority in the Senate around any proposal? That's my first question. As much as I'd like to argue that Democrats are necessary for everything, we're not. Can the Republicans coalesce around a solution that then you could bring just a few Democrats along? You don't need all of them. That still seems elusive. And I think one of the reasons why Speaker Ryan has had such a devil of a time with this is that he's wanted to pull together parts of his own caucus and has failed to do so. We'll see when these open voting patterns start. Like, they're going to put the bills out for a vote. We'll see. You know, you never know until there's a vote.
Exactly.
But I think there's going to be an awful lot of tension within the Republican caucus for all the reasons Liam just described before you can even get to whether or not Democrats can be brought on board.
Many hurdles. All right, here is what House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, of course the top Democrat in the House, is saying about this.
This is the first time in this era that we've had a president that has rejected newcomers to our country.
Now, Liam, a lot of people will say that's not fair. He's not rejecting people coming here legally. It sounds like, is there any way to make this less divisive and less partisan so there can be a solution?
Well, I think part of the issue is Congress doesn't do comprehensive very well. They need to keep it narrow, keep it simple, come up with a border solution and a DACA solution, and that's the only way you don't get into tripping other things that end up, you know, to build a coalition that gets to 218, that gets to 60 in the Senate, you need to keep it simple.
Yeah, it feels like one of those moments from years and decades ago when you'd have like a Tip O'Neill and a Ronnie Reagan and try to sit down and hammer this thing out. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of people right now on the Hill who have those kinds of relationships, because everybody agrees what we saw in that story is not okay and they want a solution. the tough thing is, how do we get there? But you would think and hope that good men and women of the Hill will rise up and figure this out.
I'd like to think that the supermajority of senators, Democrats and Republicans alike, who first passed immigration reform, this is a couple Congresses ago, but they did it. I'd like to think that that bodes well for a similar vehicle coming together this time. What stopped it then was the Freedom Caucus in the House, and that's, I think, what's stopping it now as well. But I'd like to think there's still room for bipartisanship on this issue.
Too quickly, we're out of time. Okay, all right. Well, we'll just say, though, that the president has campaigned very clearly that he wouldn't have anything to do with amnesty and he was going to take care of this problem. So he has to think about his base, and the Freedom Caucus is thinking about their base who sent them there as well and the promises they made. All right, David Goodfriend and Liam Donovan, thank you both. Have a great weekend.
You too.